I literally just recorded this entire video and then realised I didn't turn the microphone on. What is going on, guys? Welcome to this video. My name is Cameron and we are finally reviewing the Amazing Spider-Man issue 19. Now we do need to review this issue first, then review Dead No More issue 1, and then we can review the Amazing Spider-Man issue 20. So in this issue, Spider-Man is having his limits tested. He's got to choose between one thing or the other thing, and it shows you what Spider-Man is all about, making difficult decisions and basically just being hated by everyone but also loved by everyone at the same time, and just being stuck between a rock and a hard place. This comic also brings some of the emotion to the mix as well. As the reader, you really feel for J. Jonah Jameson, Aunt May and Peter Parker, and this issue actually tests their relationships together because of the events that take place in this issue. If you remember in the previous issue, Spider-Man was having a problem with putting Jay, aka Aunt May's husband, and J. Jonah Jameson's father forward for this New Technologies experiment, because every time Peter Parker goes near someone that's had New Technologies worked on them, his spider sense goes off, and he really doesn't want to put a family member forward for something that's bringing danger to Spider-Man's head. And that's not only one of the tricky decisions in this comic, but I'm not going to reveal anything just yet. It's actually agonizing to read because you're just like, what are you supposed to do in this situation? Spider-Man gets put into a situation where he can only do one thing or the other. There's not much he can do. If he does this, then he can't do that, and if he does this, then he can't do this one. It's just one of those situations that Spider-Man has been put in many times, and at the end of the day, there's nothing he can really do about it. But anyway, we really have to review this issue to review Dead No More, to then review Amazing Spider-Man issue 20, so we need to get into it. So let's get into it. So we're opening up the issue, and when we get into it, you can see that J. Jonah Jameson is using his connections and his job and his status to get new technologies out there to make them look like some crazy breakthrough and to pretty much just hype them up to the rest of the world, and it's actually really working. Now you can see in J. Jonah Jameson's face when his father is mentioned that he kind of closes up a little bit and he doesn't really want to answer the question, and I think that's pretty much what the motivation is there for J. Jonah Jameson, and it's kind of causing him to do stupid things, you know, like he's pretty much going to do anything to save his father. Obviously you're going to do something to save the person you love, and that's what's pretty much, in my opinion, going to drive J. Jonah Jameson over the edge to doing something stupid. And by that I mean that he's not really taking into account what new technologies he's doing to get these technological breakthroughs, and so it's making him a little bit reckless, but hopefully that doesn't do anything to him. Hopefully he ends up okay, we'll see. So anyway, right off the bat with Spider-Man, you can very much tell that he's pretty much trying his best to do everything. Like, he's not going to let traffic get the better of him, even though obviously he's Spider-Man, so that's not going to happen anyway. So he's not going to get stuck in traffic anyway, but you know what I mean. He's going to try his best to do everything that he can to support J. Jonah Jameson, Aunt May and Jay. But you can already tell that it's never enough, and you can already tell that whatever's happening in the issue is sort of foreshadowing what's to come in the future. Like, as Spider-Man is on his way to Aunt May, he stops a crime, but then realizes that he's actually webbed up the wrong person, and the person who was actually getting robbed actually hates Spider-Man now because he webbed up his son. And it's just kind of like, it's a little bit aggressive, but it's also showing you that if the comic starts out like this, then how is it going to end? It's sort of just foreshadowing all the way through the comic how the ending is going to turn out. And just right from the beginning, everything is already against Spider-Man, so it's not looking good. Now, going into one of the concerns that I do have with this issue that I've actually just come up with this second is, you know, like how Peter Parker is talking about how he can't tell anybody that it's his spider sense that's being triggered every time he goes near new technology, etc. Why doesn't he just say that Spider-Man, who works for Parker Industries, has a concern because his spider sense keeps going off? Especially if they believe that Spider-Man and Peter Parker are two different people. I don't understand why Peter Parker doesn't just say, yeah, Spider-Man's got a problem with it, his spider sense keeps going off, he doesn't trust it. It creates such a better dynamic in terms of character relationships and a better plot point when it comes down to Peter not being able to tell anybody. But Spider-Man is his own character in this all new, all different universe because of how Peter Parker and the Prowler have been working together to make it look like Peter and Spider-Man are two different people. So I really don't understand the problem. Speaking of relationships between J. Jonah Jameson, Aunt May and Peter Parker, one of the other relationships that I absolutely love in this issue is the relationship that Peter has with Jay. You can really tell that Jay puts all of his trust in Peter Parker, considering that he could literally just say, no Peter, I want that new technology right now. But instead, he agrees with Peter Parker and says, no, go with Peter, use the conventional method, do it the proper way. And I just love it how Jay puts that much trust into Peter Parker even though Peter's not really his son. And in a way, that sort of shows just the sort of love that Jay has for Aunt May, because if Aunt May trusts Peter Parker that much, then so does Jay, and that is just an awesome concept to lay out in front of you, especially for comic readers. Seeing that kind of characterization really sets the standard of probably making you want to trust people like that as well. It's really awesome, and it's actually quite inspirational. We're also getting into the action of the comic right now, and I think one of the best parts is Peter Parker / Spider-Man feels like he's on a time limit the entire time you are reading this comic, and it's because Jay has a limited time and Peter's got to make quick decisions and he doesn't really know what to do, and he's just kind of only just hanging in there. And for Jay's last words, or well, potentially dying words considering what kind of state he's in a minute, he's asked Spider-Man to go and get this family object that has been passed down through J. Jonah Jameson's family, and now Jay wants to give it to his own son, J. Jonah Jameson, before he passes away. And this is what I was talking about with Spider-Man being stuck between a rock and a hard place, because on the way to give this back to Jay, an incident happens in New York and this crane starts to fall over and Spider-Man's got to save these people, but the thing is, he's on a time limit. Jay doesn't have a lot of time, and in being this superhero that takes on with great power comes great responsibility, Spider-Man has his own responsibilities on the way to going back to Jay, and they always get in the way no matter what. This is what Spider-Man always has to deal with, and in the end, it doesn't really help Spider-Man, and it kind of always ends up with putting Spider-Man in a worse place than he already was. And of course, to make things worse, Spider-Man's webbing deteriorates, and that actually means that Spider-Man was holding up that crane for an entire hour, and the impact of that actually left J. Jonah Jameson's family clock, passed down through generations, broken. So you can really see that Peter Parker is not having a good time at all. Not only did he not make it back for Jay, not only was he too late to make the decision to make new technologies worth it, but he also broke the family clock, passed down through generations of J. Jonah Jameson, and wasn't there for when Jay passed away. And that is the craziest thing that could possibly, it just shows the sort of craziness that goes on in Spider-Man's life, and he really can't escape that responsibility, and it just shows how Spider-Man gets in the way of Peter Parker's personal relationships, especially now that J. Jonah Jameson is going to hate the guts of Peter Parker. It is never going to end. You thought J. Jonah Jameson hated him before, now he definitely hates him. And it's going to be awesome to see how that transfers into the future comics. And I can definitely see J. Jonah Jameson becoming a villain or something like that. That would be really awesome. But I don't know. It's pretty crazy. Okay, so I completely forgot about this, but there is a bonus part to this comic, so enjoy. The bonus section opens up with us going back to a few weeks ago with the Kingpin, and it actually turns out that the Jackal and New Technologies visits the Kingpin to try and get the Kingpin onto their side, to try and get some help from the Kingpin, probably using some of his powerful assets, maybe some of his money, etc. And they actually show Kingpin what they can do by bringing back Kingpin's lost long wife, Vanessa. And I think the best part about that is that you actually connect with Vanessa as an actual character, because if you've seen the Daredevil Netflix series, then you'll know exactly who Vanessa is, and you'll actually know her character and you'll care for her. So when Kingpin turns around and just straight up breaks her neck out of the blue, you know this just got real. I also loved it how there's a very good comparison between the Kingpin in this comic and the Kingpin in the Daredevil Netflix series, and you can really see the similarities between the two characters, just how Kingpin kind of takes the initiation of just kind of accepting that Vanessa's gone, there's no bringing her back, and so he doesn't even want to step down that path to potentially having her back, because he knows she's gone anyway. And because the Jackal did this, he's pretty much stepped into an area of Kingpin's life that nobody is ever allowed to go. So Jackal has just become enemy number one in Kingpin's eyes, and it looks like Kingpin is not going to stop at anything to see the fall of the Jackal and these new technology experiments. And it just looks so awesome to see that potentially Spider-Man and Kingpin may be teaming up, depending on the outcomes and depending on why Kingpin thinks Spider-Man will team up with him in the first place. I mean, it'd be pretty weird, I don't know. Now, we also did get the inclusion of the Rhino in there, and I just loved how hesitant the Rhino was to take down the Kingpin, because even though the Rhino is a villain, it seems like the Jackal is willing to go to a hell of a lot more lengths to get what he wants, and even then he says that he can just bring the Kingpin back afterwards. But we all know that it's probably not going to be the real Kingpin, so this is basically adding to the comic of the Dead No More Clone Conspiracy issue 1, and allows Kingpin to jump into those comics without us being confused pretty much. Really quickly, I also just love the determination in Kingpin's eyes. It's really scary. So the issue was craziness filled, but the main part that I want to speak about is Peter Parker, J. Jonah Jameson and Aunt May's relationship. I feel like this is going to be damaged within the next few issues. Something's going to happen. Of course, we've just got Jay that's just died, and that's going to really test the limits between Aunt May and J. Jonah Jameson in terms of relationships with Peter Parker, because Peter Parker is somewhat responsible well, at least from their perspective anyway. And as I was saying at the beginning of the video, Peter was really stuck between a rock and a hard place, because if he let go of that crane, then a bunch of people would have died. But then if he did, then, well, if he didn't, then just Jay would have died. And it really leaves your mind boggled. And that is something that Spider-Man's life is going to do for you, especially if you're like an immense reader, like you're really intense when you're reading these comics. Really immerse yourself into it. I can't really think of any other way that Peter Parker could have done it. Like, if it was me personally, I probably... Actually, I'm not going to answer that. We also had that extra bit with Kingpin at the end, and I think one of my favourite bits about that was that Kingpin was very similar to the Kingpin Out of the Daredevil Netflix series, where he just takes initiation. He has that sort of drive to not accept that his wife is actually back to life, and he just accepts that and he just breaks her neck, completely surprising the audience, us as the readers anyway. And it's just completely unexpected, and I love that about the Kingpin. But it seems like the Jackal has made a lifelong villain with the Kingpin now. I feel like Spider-Man is now probably going to have an ally towards the Jackal, like maybe Kingpin is going to help Spider-Man, maybe they're going to team up to take down the Jackal, because Kingpin has a real motivation for that now. So we're probably going to see some surprises, and it's going to be really interesting to see the input that Kingpin brings to the table in terms of taking down new technologies, and just what else is going to come about it. Like, I really can't, like, I feel like there's going to be some mind-blowing thing that's going to happen, and it's going to be crazy. I just can't wait. But until then, guys, it is time to end this video. I'm going to give this issue probably a 9 out of 10. Everything else is cool as hell, and I can't wait for the next issue. So guys, hit the like button if you like this video, hit the subscribe button for more. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram to stay up to date on all the comic book ness. I did just book Doctor Strange tickets. I did tweet that out earlier, so remember to let me know in the comments below what you thought about this issue. It was so awesome, but I want to hear what you thought about Peter, J. Jonah Jameson and Aunt May's relationship now. What do you think is going to happen? Let me know. And now I'll finally end the video. So I'll see you later, guys.